Hi there, welcome to my channel. This is Olutoyin Williams of olutoyinwilliams.com, HR career coach and author. In this video, I will be sharing with you 10 powerful tips to help you pass your next HR interviews like a boss. I will split this video into two parts, so this will be the first part. And in this first part, I'll be sharing 5 tips. This topic is very close to my heart because I know that a lot of HR professionals are not necessarily interview ready. So I have made out my list of points and I'll be sharing them with you by looking at my list over here. So let's go to the first one. The first point is that I want us to discuss preparation. It goes without saying that you must prepare to win. However, it will shock you that most people are not as fully prepared as they could be for an interview. How do I mean? If you look at all of the greatest athletes, all of the greatest Olympians, they would typically spend many months preparing well before the main event. That doesn't mean that you're going to be preparing every day for interviews, because I know you might be thinking, come on now, Toy. Are you saying that I should be preparing for an interview every day? No. But then as soon as you know that you're going to be moving jobs and you know you need to start looking out, that's the point you need to start preparing for interviews. So what kind of preparation are we talking about now? How much time commitment am I expecting from you? I'm expecting you to pencil into your calendar or your schedule time to prepare for interview at least 2 hours in a week if you know that you're actively looking for a job. Why do I say that? Of course, you still have your old job running, you have your family commitments, you have a number of things that are pulling for your attention, but you're also keen on changing your job. And in order for that not to come to you as a surprise, you need to then make time to prepare for it. So 2 hours a week to prepare for your job when you're, getting actively searching for a job is a good sort of schedule you need to pencil in your calendar. Now, when you're penciling that into your calendar, I don't want you to pick a day where you're really stressed. So typically maybe on Mondays, you have meetings. If you're a mid-level HR professional, you have meetings on Mondays, you have check-ins with departmental heads, you have check-in with your team members. A lot is happening on a Monday typically. Monday is not the day you're going to pencil in for your job preparation, because that's not going to work. You're mentally fagged out, you're tired, you're not going to be able to give it your best shot. In fact, most likely, if you schedule it on a Monday, you won't do it. So I'd like you to please pick a day of the week that you're quite light. A day of the week that you know you're not overly mentally taxed in doing so many other things. And if you can pick a weekend, even all the better. But I do know that some people want to use weekends with families, and that's perfect. But if you're really thinking to change your job within a short possible time frame, you need to carve out the time, make out the time to put in the work for preparation for your interview. So that's us addressing you being prepared. So specifically carve out time in your schedule that you would use to prepare for your interview, just as soon as you know you want to start looking out. Now, why do I want that? That dovetails into point number 2. The reason why you want to pencil in a specific time in your schedule every week to prepare for your interviews is because you need time to practice. Remember the illustration I gave you above about the Olympians or the athletes? They are always practicing. Whether there's a game or not, whether there's a competition or not, they're always practicing. Why? Because they want to stay in shape. Now, when it comes to interviews, you really want to stay in shape. You don't want to wait until it's 2 weeks to your interview, or maybe the recruiter has given you 3 or 4 days heads up and then you start preparing. No, I don't want you to do that. But again, you might think to yourself, come on now, Olutoyin, this advice sounds kind of, how am I going to prepare? What am I supposed to prepare? Just hang tight. I'll tell you what to prepare. What you're going to prepare is that you're going to get familiar with your work history. The reason for this is because many people have done so much in their career that they haven't had time to sort of unpack how much they've done, especially if you're a mid-level HR professional looking to position yourself into senior level HR roles. You've really done a lot. You haven't made out time to unpack what you have done to the extent where you can then put them under separate pillars. Okay, what have I done in recruitment? What have I done in talent management? What have I done in employee engagement? What have I done in exits and redundancies, disciplinary and grievances? You haven't had enough time to unpack your skill set, and you need time to do that. So to recap, point number one, which is preparation. The minute you decide that you want to change jobs, please schedule in 2 hours into your weekly plan to prepare. Now, point number two, what am I supposed to prepare? You're going to prepare your work history and your skill sets. What have you done in the last 5 years? How are you going to answer a question? Can you put down in different pillars what you've done, what you've achieved? Now, some people might say, oh, well, I know it offhand. I can recite it. That's great. We know you can recite it. Can you say it in a way that is convincing and compelling, that will stand you out amongst 10 other candidates? That's where the practice comes into play. So you're going to take your time to list out all that you have done, all that typically recruiters will want to hear from you, a potential employer will want to know from you, and of course a few bragging rights in there if you've done things that you want to brag about. Now, when I say brag about, I don't mean that in a very sleazy, arrogant way. No, you do need to be able to have monuments in your career that you can point to say, this is what I have done, especially if you're a mid-level HR professional and you're watching this video. So if you look back in your last 5 years, what have you done? What big projects have you led? What turnaround projects have you led? Or what turnaround projects have you contributed to in a very significant degree? You need to be able to list that out. What was your contribution to it? Did you brainstorm? Were you part of the strategy? Did you implement? Did you evaluate? You have to be able to itemize exactly what you did in each project you're referring to, because that's going to form the huge part of your narrative when you're speaking in front of a potential employer. I hope you get what I mean. So that's what I mean when I say you have to make time to practice. You have to make time to practice your responses, to practice talking about those projects. Not in a way where someone says, okay, so let me give you an example. Someone then says, Olutoyin, tell us about a time when you were involved in a grievance. How did you handle it? And then I start looking for the answer, which comes to my fourth point or my fifth point. We'll talk about that in a bit. But then I start thinking about my answer. I'm fishing around for it. Not that I haven't done it, but I can't remember it. So I'm thinking to myself, what did I do? And then because I am in an interview situation, guess what's going to first happen? Your palms will get sweaty. Yeah. You're going to start feeling the nerves. Why? Because you're not prepared. You know the answer, but it's just not coming to you. And even if the answer came to you, because you haven't prepared and rehearsed the answer well ahead of time, your answer is going to come out disjointed. Your answer is going to come out in a way that doesn't show confidence and capability. And that is not the image you want to project at the interview. So please, you have to make time to practice. You have to make time to list out everything you've done that is of significant value. And then you're going to say it in a way that is compelling, in a way that shows confidence, in a way that shows that you're the best candidate for the position. So that was point number 2, practice. Now for point number 3, you have to practice staying positive. What do I mean by this? Now I'm going to speak to us as mid-level HR professionals who's been around the block, right? So if you're watching this video, you have 6 to 7 years of work experience, 6 to 8 years of work experience. You probably have worked in 2 or 3 places since you finished school. And if you had been working before you finished school, so you have a lot more experience. You have worked in definitely more than 2 to 3 places. So you've been around the block. And in some organizations, you were not necessarily treated fairly. What are you going to do about those experiences? Is the job interview the time to recall when your boss gave you that low appraisal rating? Is your job interview the time to recall when you were asked to exit that company? Is your job interview the time to recall when you think you were being unfairly treated? No. If you have been exposed to such unpleasant situations and it's affected you personally, maybe mentally, and you need to seek help to walk through that trauma, please seek help. Don't bring it into the job interview. And the reason is because employers are extremely wary of employees that would come into a job interview situation and start to talk about their previous line manager, how they were treated unfairly, how they were, dismissed, how they were involved in this situation, how they weren't treated properly, how they felt they were being discriminated against. We all know that happens within the organization. We're not proud of it. We hope that many organizations with more responsible people, such incidences will be reduced to the barest minimum. But do they still happen? Yes. Could it be possible that HR people are involved in it? Yes. Could you have been on the receiving end of such treatment? Yes. Do we need to know about it in the interview? No. We don't need to know about it in the interview. Yes, I'm being sober about it because, some candidates get into an interview and then they begin to go on about that negative situation, how it affected them, how this, how that. And what you will only achieve is that you're going to achieve showing your potential employer that you're coming with a lot of baggage. And they're going to have to walk through that first before they can get you to perform. Because, several things can trigger you. You can suddenly remember, how you were in that appraisal situation. Maybe there was a particular matter that happened and you suddenly remembered how you felt in that situation, and then you're triggered. They don't want somebody who is triggerable. That's not to say that everybody is not triggerable, but they don't want somebody who is openly triggerable, if there is such a word as triggerable. They don't want somebody who is openly, easy to trigger. They want someone who is confident, who has obviously been around the block, understand that these things happen in organization, and has the capability, the resilience to manage through it. That's what they want to see in the interview. So as much as possible, I need you to practice speaking positively of your past work experiences, no matter how terrible they have been. Practice speaking positively. Now, you might say to me, okay, for 2 seconds, let's just even talk about this. What if I had been in a situation where it was highly unfavorable and I was asked to go, or I was treated so poorly, I had to exit? First off, I am sorry about that. I'm sorry you were in that situation. I genuinely feel bad for you. Could there have been things you can take away from that situation so as not to be in that situation next time? Maybe, probably, if you thought about it. But right now is not the time and place to talk about it. The prospective employer is not a therapist. So please don't bring that baggage into that conversation. What I would love you to project in that conversation, can you see my smile? I would love you to project your capability, your resilience, your ability to navigate difficult relationships, your ability to stay on track, your ability to get results. Because those qualities, if properly projected, is what is going to land you the job. Now, does that mean you can't talk about a slightly unfavorable situation in an interview? Absolutely not. You can. I'll teach you how to talk about that later. So you definitely can. But in the interview situation, the first thing I want you to do is I want you to project your capability. I want you to project your confidence. I want you to project the fact that you're resilient and you have been through quite a number of experiences, but you've managed to come out on top. That's what I want you to project in the interview. Is that fine? That's what we're committing to projecting in the interview. Now, to move on to the next point, I want you to practice speaking for not more than 2 minutes. So at any point in time in the interview, you're asked the question, I want you to practice speaking for not more than 2 minutes. Why? Why 2 minutes? Now, 2 minutes is about that time when somebody switches off. In fact, some people switch off even faster if you're not making sense, if you're not communicating value, if you're not directly responding to a question, and you go into your first 30 seconds, they've switched off. So we're making an assumption that you're communicating value, you're answering the question correctly, you're projecting your self-confidence. Please don't speak for more than 2 minutes so that you don't take over the conversation. Remember, it's an interview. It's a conversation, it's an interview, it's a conversation. Because they're asking you questions and hopefully you're responding, you're engaging, and you have a few well-prepared questions of your own to ask them as well. And because of that interchange, there is a conversation. So whilst you're being interviewed, you're being assessed, you're interviewing them as well, you're passing information, you're receiving information, you're having a lovely conversation. And at the end of that lovely conversation, you can determine if this is the organization you want to work for. Now, as with every conversation, you can't dominate the conversation, no matter how much, fantastic experience you're bringing to the table. If it's not a presentation, please do not speak for more than 2 minutes at a stretch. Allow pauses, allow opportunities for people to interject and ask clarifying questions. Leave a little bit more and just say, oh, would you prefer if I, would you prefer? So ask the question in a way that shows that you're inviting them into the conversation and you're not giving a lecture or a discussion. So please don't speak for more than 2 minutes so that it can continue to be a two-way conversation and both of you can enjoy learning about each other and obviously assessing if this relationship is to continue into a full-blown job employment offer. Okay, so don't speak for more than 2 minutes. I want you to watch your pauses. I want you to watch your pauses. Now, what do I mean by that? So if someone asks you a question in an interview and you sort of speak the way I just spoke now, which is I paused, it felt like I trailed off. Ordinarily, what would that communicate to you? I'll give you a second to think about it. What would that communicate to you? That will communicate to you that the person isn't sure of what they're saying. In an interview situation, you don't have all day to think about your answers, which is why we said point number 2, you must practice. Point number 1, you must be prepared. You don't have all day. You have to speak. You have to speak in a way that is at normal pace, in a way that shows that you're on top of your responses, you're fully present in the moment. If you have to speak and there are so many pauses in between, the question that the interviewer is going to have in their mind is this person just slightly, without being disrespectful, slightly slow in understanding and processing? Now, depending on what role within HR that you're being interviewed for, we need speed. Yes, maybe not all of us are spring chickens, so you can't come up with an answer. Almost like, like in a debate, they say, 2 times 2 is 4. No, we're not. We're not looking for that level of speed, but we need you to be quite on the ball with it. So if someone says something, there is a reasonable amount of pause that needs to come in between when someone finishes asking a question and when I start to respond. If it's longer than what is norm, then we're going to be worried to say, okay, does this person have an hearing problem? Do they need a bit more assistance and support in being able to complete these interviews? Do they need, and then they will begin to think about several things. So you need to watch your pauses. You need to watch your pauses. And all of this ties back to the first point that I shared earlier, preparation. Nothing beats your preparation. If you have carved out 2 hours in your schedule every week to prepare for your interviews, even though you haven't gotten an interview date yet. Yes, I said it. Prepare for your interviews, even though you haven't got an interview date yet. When the interview date comes, you're going to already be 50% ready. Because you could just, for 2 seconds, go on Google and type in 10 best interview questions. You can find that out very easily. So nothing stops you from actually being prepared. The only reason why you won't prepare is because you're not really serious about your job search. You're thinking you can wing it because you've got experience. And those 2 things are a recipe for disaster. And I don't want you to be in that situation. So I'll recap the 5 points that we have shared so far. Number 1, prepare. Make time out in your schedule, 2 hours a week minimum, and prepare for your interviews. Number 2, practice. Practice your responses to well-known interview questions. Practice talking about your career milestones, especially if you're a mid-level HR professional and you're watching this video. 6 to 8 years or 9 years of work experience as an HR person, you should have milestones. If you don't have milestones or you don't understand what I mean by milestones, comment below and I would make another video to explain what that means, because I really want you to ace your next interview. So you should have milestones. Prepare, practicing your milestones, talking about your capability, your achievements, and what you've done in your career, to what extent you've done it, so that you're speaking seamlessly. It flows. So 1 is prepare, 2 is to practice, 3 is I need you to speak positively about your past employers. You must. Whatever trauma, whatever challenging situations happened in the past, I need you to keep them in the past. Don't bring them into the current interview situation, so that you don't put off your interviewers because you're digging into the past and then digging into a whole lot of negative emotions if that has happened. If you are wondering, okay, how do I navigate my way through? I'm not a therapist in any way, but I'm more than happy to lend you an ear so that you can talk about it, get it off your chest. Let's make sense of it together, and that's fine. So please speak positively about them in the interview. And then the 4th point is, do not speak for more than 2 minutes at a time. Remember, it's a conversation, not a lecture. It's a conversation and not a lecture. So make it conversational by not speaking for more than 2 minutes at a time. And the 5th point is, watch your pauses. Don't pause for so long that it looks as if you've lost track of what the conversation was even about. If you didn't hear the question, you can ask them to please kindly repeat the question. I beg your pardon. Could you kindly repeat that? And say it with such a nice, sweet smile that no one's going to refuse you. But don't go, into this, I can't remember what it is we're talking about again, or I have no clue. No, don't do that. Don't do that. If you have prepared, if you have practiced, you will more likely have answers to the interview questions that you will be asked. And that's all I'll be sharing in this video. If you have found this video helpful, don't forget to comment. I love to hear from you. How does this video hit? Does it make sense? Do you disagree with my points? Do you think we should go deeper on one particular point? Please comment below so that I can hear from you. Please share and subscribe with friends so that other people can get this very interesting tips, and then they too would be able to ace their next HR interview. And just before you leave, don't forget to click the link in the description below. I have a free resource for you which will help you to get into my community, and that way you get on my newsletter. We can keep connected to each other. And if there are any particular questions, any particular HR issues, HR interview issues, HR career issues, I'm here for all of that. Don't forget to send them to me, and I'll be happy to either create a video or respond to you directly and make sure that you get all of the help that you want. So till next time, when I come your way again in the part 2 of this video, I'll see you next time. Bye.